Serious, what is the scariest thing you have seen ever?
Finding this young dude after he'd been stabbed like 7 times and trying to comfort him. I knew the guy was going to die, and I think he did too. About a year of sleepless nights and a moderate case of PTSD later, I've come to terms with what happened.
My brother losing consciousness and falling down the stairs. He lay on the floor with his eyes open and blood coming out of his ear. He was fine after one day at the hospital, but I sure as hell thought I just witnessed the death of my brother.
This happened just this past weekend. Came home to find my brother blacked out, and when he came to, he could barely stand, walk, was in an altered mental state, talking like he was drunk. He hadn't eaten or drank anything but water in 3 days and had been sleeping pretty much around the clock. Turns out he's diabetic now and was experiencing diabetic ketoacidosis. Spent the weekend in the ICU. He blacked out because he was so dehydrated that his heart couldn't properly pump blood and his blood pressure was bottoming out while his heart rate was skyrocketing. His blood glucose was sky high. He's doing better now, thankfully. But I thought I was watching my big brother, my best friend, die right in front of me at the time.
My brother cooking noodles too hot and evaporating a large portion of blood. I watched it happen. He was cooking noodles and I was near him. These noodles were cooked very very hot in a microwave. He was 7 and I was 5. Someone in the house startled him, causing him to jump and spilling the very hot noodle water on his leg. I saw how terrifying it was. Flesh was off and blood was showing in some places. There was no blood coming out. His leg was normally sized, but when this happened there was literally no showing fat, no flowing blood, nothing. He almost died to a pack of noodles. We took him to the hospital where he got blood transfusions, stitches and a cast. When the skin was patched up and healed, he had melanin deficiency in the area where the severe burn occurred. We're black. It took years for that to turn back to normal. And #X200B. Another terrifying thing that happened was my friend thinking about suicide.
Seriously. 9/11. Seeing scores of people jumping to their deaths and then watching 3,000 people die in 2 brief moments on live TV was. I still can't put it into words. I was just far too young to see that. Even if only on TV, I was still aware it wasn't CGI or actors.
My son not breathing at 7 months old.
I saw a guy on a bike get hit by a car. Guy blew through a crosswalk on his bike when he wasn't supposed to. Car came to a stop and bumped him. Car was going maybe 2 miles an hour, but the dude still got flown a good 6 feet. You don't really think about how big and heavy cars are until you see something like that. Anyway, dude got up, shaky as all, beep, waved at the car, then pedaled off. Nuts to see.
A speeding train hitting a guy.
The Black Saturday bushfires. We were in a small town where my grandmother lived, helping her pack up to get to safety. The fire was moving so fast we had maybe 1 minute to move if they sounded the warning to leave. Watching the horizon change color from black to a dark orange to a full wall of flames in a matter of minutes is beep intense. The trees exploded from the intensity of the heat, making these dull popping sounds amongst what sounded like rain from ash and embers falling everywhere. It's worth noting that the town is nestled amongst a bunch of hills in dense bushland with treacherous terrain, and we were almost completely surrounded. Every hill glowed for hours.
Driving on the toll road during rush hour, these guys on motorcycles start splitting the lanes. There's about 6 of them racing each other, whooping and laughing as they block the guy in back from passing. He cuts across a lane to try and pass them by going up the other side. I hear someone honk to try and warn him right before the guy hits a big chunk of tire tread that had peeled off of a semi-truck. Dude managed to stay on his bike, lays it down, and then pinballs off a car and under a big semi-truck. Everyone slammed on their brakes as this happens and traffic stops dead. I see his bike slide down the concrete barrier without him. And then the truck pulled forward. The guy was laying on the shoulder of the road. People start putting cars in park and getting out to help as his friends start cutting the lanes against traffic to come back for him. And this guy sits up. He stands. He can't lift one arm at all, and his helmet has huge gouges out of the side, but someone started hollering. Then he lifts his good arm up in a fist and everyone just lost it, honking and shouting. This whole freeway thought we'd just watched him die, and instead we were cheering like crazy. One of his buddies helped him onto the back of his bike. A guy in a pickup grabbed the bike, and people got back in their cars as they cut through traffic and took the next exit. The scariest thing that wasn't dramatic, just horrifying, was falling asleep with my kid when he was sick and waking up at 2 a.m. to check on him. His fever was 41.2 degrees Celsius, 106 degrees Fahrenheit. I poured 5 milliliters of Tylenol down his throat and carried him out to the car to go to the hospital. As I unlocked the car, I slipped on ice and fell, twisting so he landed in about 60 centimeters, 2 feet, of snow instead of the concrete. He didn't even stir, didn't flinch, just nothing. He didn't even open his eyes or squirm when the snow hit his bare skin. I took off his coat and put him in the car with the windows down to try and cool him off. I called the hospital as we drove. They were able to get his fever under control and prevent any lasting damage at the hospital, but seeing him lay limp and quiet as a rag doll in the snow was horrifying.
A near-miss accident on the motorway. Felt like it damn near stopped my heart and time absolutely slowed down. It was in front of me, so I played out how many cars would be in the pileup, and if I couldn't avoid it, where would I end up, and how could I minimize damage to my own car so as to avoid damage to myself and my passenger.
I watched a man shoot another man in the head at an apartment complex. I was coming out the door and someone screamed, "Get back in." I ran back in and heard the shots. Looked out the window and saw the man laying on the ground with holes in his head. The man who was shot had been seeing the other man's wife. The crazy thing is, I worked with the woman. She never came back to work. I had PTSD for a while because of this.
Someone already covered 9/11, so I'll add one that's more existential fear. Seeing my dad in recovery after heart surgery. It was only then I really realized how mortal and vulnerable he was, and that he wasn't going to be around forever.
My wife and I were driving down the interstate behind a truck that was pulling a trailer full of junk. An old wheel and tire came off, bounced a couple of times and then shot off straight at us. There have been a lot of times in my life where everything slowed down. Every other time, I've been able to calmly collect my thoughts and do what I needed to do. I'm a nurse and people's lives have been saved by my ability to do that. This was the only time where I just couldn't think of a single thing to do and started to mentally prepare that this tire hitting me in the face was what was going to end my life. I turned the wheel a little bit so that I would take the brunt of the hit and not my wife. Then I just waited and hoped the wreck wouldn't kill her too. It hit with one of the loudest noises I've ever heard as it smashed our windshield. Thankfully, it also crushed the metal roof, which absorbed a good amount of the hit and prevented the wheel from going all the way through the glass. We got cut up some, but we lived. Whoever was driving the truck drove off and left us there and were never found.
Car hitting a child, luckily it wasn't serious.
Night terror demon. It wasn't so much the figure that scared me as it was the conscious realization that I was awake and completely paralyzed.
Wolves stalking outside my apartment. Big. Bad. Wolves. To this day I haven't gotten a primal adrenaline surge quite like it. It was caveman beep, every sensor in my body was screaming danger, 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 danger.
I woke up in the middle of the night randomly, seeing a figure at the end of my bed with the most evil red eyes. I froze in shock as it moved around the bed and leaned over right in front of my face. Felt a cold chill, then it just disappeared. Told my fiancé about it in the morning, she kinda blew it off. 2 nights later she wakes up in the middle of the night and was talking to the red-eyed man about me. Legit scared the crap out of me.
My mother being suicidal and hurting herself, she was almost about to take her own life.
Almost killed myself by falling and trying to grab onto something and cutting my hand open. I was 7.
Seeing my father being about to kill me.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.